Is this thing on? We're into the second C.S. Lewis book review as part of this very short Christian ethics theories. This one is probably the sort of most digestible read, but also a very interesting read in terms of it's the only fiction in this series that I'm doing, The Great Divorce by C.S. Lewis. It's a fiction piece, but there is definitely some sort of moral argumentation happening here, moral defenses for Christian lifestyle. And basically, the premise of the book, the story being told, is in this conceptualization of sort of a purgatory where it's not quite hell and not quite heaven in an afterlife. There's a potential to go from hell to heaven. So even upon death, your sort of ability to form a relationship with God still exists. And in this form of purgatory, there's sort of a malaise in the hellscape, but then there's also this sort of great fear in the early heaven phase, and there's pain involved with sort of becoming closer to God, which sort of reinforces the meaning of the previous book, whereas there is suffering, there's a purpose for suffering, and it's not necessarily a tool for specifically evil. Now, another sort of element of this book is debates around what is moral, and it gets very deep in terms of sort of there's a nihilist character, there's an intellectual character, there's sort of those who turn pity into forms of either evil or forms of vices, and it shows that even things that we perceive as good can turn bad, and so we have to be careful not to make idols out of things that we perceive as always morally righteous. And that is sort of playing off of the last two videos, sort of what is good, what is wrong. The good is sort of defined either as maximum mathematical good, a transcendent good, or sort of good in terms of what we all personally experience. Anyways, I'll get into the quotes here. So the first quote is from the intellectual, the dialogue around the intellectual character. I promise you none of these things. No sphere of usefulness. You are not needed there at all. No scope for your talents, only forgiveness for having perverted them. No atmosphere of inquiry, for I will bring you not to the land of questions, but of answers. This is sort of an academic who ended up in this sort of place of heaven, and there's consistent doubt, because part of the intellectual process, the scientific method, is wanting to continually verify the findings of whatever circumstance that you're within. And in this conception of an afterlife, the intellectual is still looking for it. They've turned the process of objectivity and reason into an idol. And when you turn objectivity and reason into an idol, well, you do sometimes get a little bit more pro-social and a little bit more reflective and introspective, but you also have the potential to never trust. You potentially lose the ability to trust in whatever particular circumstance you're in. You become distrusting as an intellect, and it's a consequence. And if such an afterlife exists, then you have to be able to suspend your disbelief when that occurs. Next quote. Everyone who wishes it does, never fear. There are only two kinds of people in the end. Those who say to God, "Thy will be done," and those to whom God says, in the end, "Thy will be done." All that are in hell choose it. Without that self-choice, there could be no hell. No soul that seriously and constantly desires joy will ever miss it. Those who seek find. To those who knock, it is opened. This is saying, at least in sort of the Christian ethic, that there's sort of really just two paths. You can agree that God exists and want to serve God, or you can either disagree that God exists or not want to serve God. And in that circumstance, you just have the relationship ended, at least in the theological perspective, and then the relationship grows as long as you continue to want that relationship with God. And that relationship does involve whatever sort of theological perspective of being one with God means. So within the Christian perspective, it's repentance for sin, it's building community within the Christian faith. Those are the sort of circumstances for relationship with God, but other theologies have various other circumstances for relationship with God. And that those are sort of fundamentally what it really would come down to. And sort of the atheist would argue that if there is no God, then really it's just our relationships with each other that we have to cultivate, and not necessarily relationships with a supreme being. And the final quote. And yet all loneliness, angers, hatreds, envies, and itchings that it contains, if rolled into a single experience and put into scale against the least moment of joy that is felt by the least in heaven, would have no weight that could be registered at all. Bad cannot succeed, even in being bad, as truly as good is good. If all hell's miseries together entered the consciousness of yon wee yellow bird on the bough over there, they would be swallowed up without a trace. So in this conception of heaven, bad fleece. Bad is nothing. Bad is minuscule. But within human existence, those are sort of our traits, our circumstances that we ourselves hide from and try to run from. It's a very interesting book because it's sort of a form of dialogue and also sort of vivid imagery of not necessarily even a fun, enjoyable heaven to be part of, which is different from sort of various theological perspectives. But in terms of where it ties into ethics and why ethics is important is because when you are determining for yourself what is right and wrong, you have to figure out, sort of solve for problems of suffering, but you also have to solve for problems of what is righteous, and is righteousness purely satisfaction? Is it purely joy? And it could be yes to that degree, but joy itself can become sort of a vice, a drug. Anyways, these are just my thoughts. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments below. And I got one more C.S. Lewis book to go over and a couple more videos, but this ethics series will be pretty short just because I'm more interested overall in what is knowable than what is basically faith. I would say faith versus knowledge are different. Faith is knowledge. Knowledge is justified true belief through observation and other formats, whereas faith, it's true belief and it can be justified, but it's hard to justify through observation. That's how I would frame what faith and knowledge are, and I want my channel more focused on knowledge than faith. But faith is important and good, but knowledge is more important in our earthly lives than it is our lives beyond earth. Definitely want to say thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.